And we'll actually sand this whole thing down. So I started fitting the engine in the engine bay and just trying to see how it actually sits in here and what I need to move. The Mazda RX-8 has a sway bar that's in the way, as well as a steering column for most swaps. So usually you need an adapter to move it down, but I moved just the sway bar for now, and I think we could probably make this work. I mean, let's see if I get it to an angle. So it'll kind of look like this. Of course, I still have the intake manifold, which sits a bit higher about here. Now the hood will not close, so that might be a little bit of an issue. But this is kind of like first look at it. And let's look underneath. So it's a little bit of an incline, but that's where the steering rack is. So I think we'll need to move it out of the way, move it down a little bit, and that should give us just enough space to bring the engine down a bit. And then we should be good. So the engine is now in position exactly where I want it. So if you look down the center, it kind of lines up right in the middle. So I mean, I used the kind of the center of the car here, as well as the center line here. It's about 13 inches. If I just measure, it's about 26 inches side to side. So 13 inches right in the middle gives us exactly the center point. And then I know that the alternator is right in the center of this engine, so I can use that as my middle point. And then I kind of position the engine, sit it exactly where I want it, push it as far back as possible. I move the ABS pump out of the way. And again, this is just temporary. I just needed to create the space so that way I can put the engine exactly where I need it. This fuse box also is a little bit in the way, so I moved it. So it's just sitting there for now. But the engine's sitting exactly where I want it. This is as high as it's gonna be. Unfortunately, I can't bring it any lower because it touches on the frame. So this is where it's gonna be. And then we have a big intake here up top. So that'll be fine. I can access the coil plugs, so that's not a concern. I can still do some maintenance here and there. I have access to the hoses right here for the coolant. You know, the intake is up here, so I can access it. Behind the engine, there's not much that I would ever need to access. Right there is gonna be the fuel lines, so I can just bring in the fuel lines on either end. So that's perfectly fine. And then here I have plenty of space for a radiator, you know, pretty thick one, and then some fans, so that'll be fine. So now let's see what the underneath looks like to give you a better idea. Right now I just have it sit on wood, just like I said, to get it in the right position. I did move the steering rack out of the way, just so, like I said, I can get the right placement. But the steering rack will clear, or this engine will clear the steering rack, but I think I will space it just a little bit. I'm still deciding on whether I want to use those two mounting holes for the engine mount, or if I'm going to use the original engine mount right here. As you can see, there is space, however it is limited. So let's see if I can get a better look here. Okay, so that's the engine mount piece. So we're going to create a mounting port from here to either here or to the side of the engine where the original engine mount is. And then right here is going to be, I think that's where the power, either here or here is the power steering unit. We'll just need to make some sort of adapter piece so that way I can still run the original belt. And then in the back there, that's where our starter will be. And our starter comes way up till here. Our starter comes to those two bolt holes. So that's we need to have the engine mount. We can't have it come down. We need to have the engine mount go kind of like how the original one is. So just at an angle, like at a 45, and then either mount to here or there. And then the exhaust is right above here, and we'll make like a log style manifold. So have it all connected into one piece and then come down and go around the engine. And we'll repeat this process on the other side. But for now, let's get this engine mount base created. We'll create the RX-8 base mount, and then we'll connect the two with a bushing of some sort. So let's do that. The first step in creating an engine mount is coming up with a plate, drill the holes where it actually will sit on the engine. I use the original engine mount so I can get the right holes. And basically transfer that onto, 1/4-inch steel plate. So once we have this on the engine, then we can continue and create the rest of the mount. Next up, we weld this bushing to it and basically just tack it in place. It's not permanent, just something to kind of get us a nice template. And this will actually then go on the engine like so. And then from here, I could then attach, this is a mounting point that I can attach it to the car itself. So basically what's left here is to create a mounting surface for these little ears things. Again, we're doing like an LS sort of mount, just to get the engine in place, and then we'll go from there. This is the engine mount on the engine. And like I said, it gives us a mounting point, which then we can use to create our bottom portion of the mount that attaches to that. Now let's create a exhaust manifold that fits in that little area and goes out by the oil filter there. So it kind of has to be like a log style and then goes down and around. So that's next on the list. And that way, when I'm creating the bottom piece of the engine mount, nothing else is in the way. Next up, we take some exhaust headers. These are from like a 87 Mustang or something like that, I forget. But basically, just took some generic exhaust manifolds that I found off eBay that kind of basically fits what I need. So what I'm gonna do now is I'll cut the flange and basically use the existing tubing and the collector, cut this off, add a V-band, adjust some of the piping. But it gives me a good starting point, so I have to start, from scratch. And it already has nice bends in it, so it just kind of saves me a little bit of work. And after I'm done with that, it'll look something like this. Again, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it works. This is the driver's side, so again, it's nice and compact and do the job done. Here I gotta, add a V-band and make it look a little bit nicer. But that's the driver's side, and I'm working on the passenger side now. And then the exhausts will both be done, at least the headers. And then I can start working on the bottom mount piece, and then engine should be in. I can start working on the rest of the exhaust and then the drive shaft. And then basically fuel, a couple more things, and we should be done. I picked up the original oil container thing that sits in the Maserati's like fender well. This is where the oil sits for the engine. And what's cool about this is your dipstick. So like this way you can tell how much, oil is in here. So this is where it is. And as I actually check your oil, which is pretty cool. This is your feed line that goes on top of the engine, or the return, I forget which one it is. Pretty sure it's the feed line. And I don't know what these are for, but I'll find out for sure. Next up, we'll be tackling the fuel system. In the Maserati, we have basically 2 fuel rails and goes right to the tank. So there's no fuel pressure regulator, it's all in the fuel tank. The first step here is we'll be converting these fuel lines to 6AN. So what I did first is take these out. So we removed the basically the old fuel lines, get rid of those. And then next, we have to figure out what the thread of that is. And we use one of these little things. And basically what I figured out is the adapter piece that I need for this fuel rail is M14 times 1.5 female. And I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the adapter that we need. And basically this is 6AN, and right here is M14 times 1.5. That just screws on like so. And then we have a 90-degree 6AN fitting. That'll basically screw on like this. And it's swivel. And then here we just run a line to the fuel feed line. And from there, we use one of these things. This is a 5/16 fuel line adapter. Basically, it just clips onto the factory line, and then this is 6AN. So it is. So it's down there. Basically, we use this, and we'll clip it on, and then run a line, you know, this way. We'll use one of these things. This is a Y adapter, 6AN Y adapter. We'll do something like this, probably somewhere here, and have one feed over to this fuel rail and another one feed over to this fuel rail. And our fuel line will be done. Have some 6AN braided steel lines, which again, we're gonna create our lines here in just a minute. And then all we gotta do is upgrade the fuel pump to like a Walbro 205 maybe, or something like that. We'll take that off later, but for now, let's create these fuel lines. You've probably seen this before, but basically you put this cap on and you screw it until it basically sits in there nicely. You've probably seen AN lines before, but basically you put the cap on and screw it until it sits nicely on this hose. And then you have a second piece right here that will screw into this piece like so. And you basically keep going until it's, you know, nicely and fitted, and you have a nice connection. And I like to put it in a vise and spray it with some lubricant and screw it on, because that usually keeps the hose where it needs to be. Once you screw that in, then this side is done and you can connect it to your AN fitting. So now we got to measure this and figure out where we need to cut it and then add the next fitting. And we have the other end completed. So this is our finished fuel line for one of the fuel rails, which is going to be this one right here. So basically it's going to go down there, hook up like this. There you go. Anyway, so we have one side done. It's going to feed over there into the Y adapter. So one going down there. Got to do the exact same thing on this side, and same thing, it's going to feed over to that Y adapter. And basically our fuel lines are done. Now we finished the right side for the fuel rail. So same thing, we have a 90-degree 6AN fitting and then a straight fitting there. And basically, let's see if I can get this with one hand. So we'll hook that on there, and then this will feed over on that side, and basically it will tie into that Y piece here. We'll tie in here, and then this will tie into the body fuel line. The fuel lines are done. Again, 6AN line here, 90-degree, and then a M14 times 1.5 fitting for these fuel rails. Just two of each, and then a Y fitting to a 5/16 to a like a Mazda fuel line connector. The original Mazda RX-V8 fuel pressure is about 60 psi, which is what this Ferrari / Maserati engine needs as well. So we don't need to do any external fuel pressure regulators or anything like that. The only thing left, like I said, is to upgrade the fuel pump. We'll probably do a Walbro 205 or something like that. The issue is we want to avoid putting a high-powered fuel pump to not increase the fuel pressure more than what the engine needs. So to avoid that, like I said, a simple, like I said, 205 does the job as far as I've seen on like LS swaps. And like I said, my entire swap is basically based on, you know, people doing LS swaps and seeing what they're doing, how they're adapting it. And then I'm just gonna basically tailor that swap or that information over to my engine here. But that's all we got for fuel as of right now. Fuel lines are on, and now we can start working on the AC condenser, AC compressor, and making sure that works. And I'll show you what I got, because the original compressor from the Mazda is a 4-rib for the belt, and the Maserati engine is a 6-rib belt. So I needed to find something that actually works. The Maserati one is too big and it kind of gets in the way when I'm trying to do the engine mount. So what I did was I basically looked at refurbished AC units on eBay until I found one that sort of looks like it's gonna work. And I found one from a Mazda 6, I believe. It's the 2.3 liter V6. I'm sure I'll correct it in here. But yeah, it's just a regular Mazda 6 AC compressor, and the line inputs are the same as the RX-8 and like the Miatas, so I can reuse the existing RX-8 lines. I don't need to weld anything up, and all I got to do is make a bracket and you know, switch some wires for the triggering connector, and that's basically it. I mean, everything will basically line up. The belt on the Maserati fits on that compressor, so I'll show you what I got here. So this is the AC compressor that I got. Like I said, it's off a Mazda 6. Let's see, 2007 Mazda 6. Anyway, it has 3 spots for the bolts to line up. It actually be like this. And then here are my lines. And this is the trigger. So I think this should work. This is the Maserati. This is the Mazda 6, and then the RX-8 unit. So as you can see, the RX-8, it's a lot smaller. And the belt here, I got 3 ribs. And these ones are, this is the Maserati ones. This is the belt size that I need to use. And the one that closely matched to it is this Mazda 6 unit. I have the clutch off of this one because I was gonna replace the wheel on this one. I was gonna take the wheel off the Maserati unit and retrofit it to the RX-8 unit, but that didn't really work. It's a different spline in here, so that I scrapped that idea. The only difference is a 2-wire for the trigger, and this is only 1 here. So I got to figure out what's what, and so I can make it work. It's probably, this is just trigger wire. This is probably some sort of ground or something. But I'll figure that out once we get to it. So that's it for this video. I tried to record and kind of document the progress so far. I know it's a little bit all over the place, but with a project this complex and, you know, things that have never been done before in this chassis, it's a lot of trial and error. So a lot of times I'm waiting for parts to come in, and then I have to basically figure out if they do fit or if they don't fit, and just kind of trial and error until something works. While the guys over from Speed Gems are working on the adapter plate for the transmission, you know, working on things such as AC, coolant lines and fuel lines, that sort of thing. And the next step here will be to get the adapter plate, put the transmission in, and then figure out the drive shaft situation, you know, clutch slave, cylinder, that sort of thing. Wiring is on the way. The thing about the wiring is that I don't know if it's gonna work until the engine's in the car and I'm basically testing it. In my head and based on, like, you know, the diagrams that I have, it should work. So I'm gonna run both ECUs in tandem. So the RX-8 is gonna get the tach signal as well as the water temp sensor. And then the Maserati is gonna, you know, run the Maserati sensors and all that stuff. Huge shout out to Kaiser Automation. The guy over there, Andrew, is great. He kind of helped me talk over some things and figure out the next steps regarding the wiring. What he did for his GM V6 swap and how he overcame some of the issues with the RX-8, and I'm trying to kind of comprehend that and apply it to my engine swap. That's all we got going on so far for this project. Thank you guys so much for watching, supporting this build. Follow me on Instagram for more updates, and we'll see you next time. Bye.